Okay, you guys, it's a little bit late or it's a little bit early, depending on how you're looking at it, but we are all gathered here today because I want answers. I want answers. I was looking at the Nancy Grace show earlier, and it seems that I have more questions now than answers. And I know a lot of you have been following this case from the very beginning, as I off and on, but let's just look at the Nancy Grace show and figure it out together. Now, you can watch it right here on YouTube in its entirety. I do have to reiterate every few minutes, so just bear with me and we'll get through it.
Breaking news tonight. Closing in. Reports are surfacing that the musician D4VD, known as David Anthony Burke, is finally being viewed as a suspect in teen girl Celeste's murder. Her body found in his Tesla trunk. Amidst more reports, the killer had help dismembering the little girl. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us. Reports emerging from sources within the LAPD that musician David Anthony Burke, aka D4VD, David, is finally being viewed as a suspect in the murder of teen girl Celeste's death. As we all recall, her body found largely decomposed in his trunk.
Now, I had to reiterate in that. You guys know from my past videos, whoever did this crime, they were sloppy. I hate to say it. To leave a body in a trunk for what could have been months, it's looking like. Very sloppy crime. No doubt, it really was.
That vehicle moved and moved and moved from one spot to the next within a ritzy neighborhood. Why? Because we know the owners of those mega mansions would report the filthy car as being parked outside their home. So someone was moving and moving and moving D4VD's Tesla inside Celeste's decomposing body. What has changed? What has happened? Why is D4VD, David, now reportedly being viewed as a suspect? Will this result in murder charges? How can this be without a toxicology report as of yet? But to Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter, what I consider to be really validating what many court viewers knew, that D4VD is being considered as a suspect, although it has not been officially announced.
Okay, so now I get it. In yesterday's video, somebody said it was fake news. Well, I get it now, because even though everyone is talking about it, I guess they haven't come forth and said he is a suspect, but it's looking that way. Unfortunately for him, it's looking that way. And I strongly believe they don't know what to charge him with. First degree, second degree, third degree. I don't even know. I really don't know. If they know, they would have probably already charged him.
Is the change in the timeline. Now we are learning that police sources believe Celeste was killed back in the spring. And bombshell tonight, police also looking at a road trip taken into a remote area by D4VD in the spring, where he stayed in that remote area for hours before returning back. I can only assume this information is coming from his nav system, or is there a rat within Burke's camp? Because tonight I definitely smell a rat.
Yeah, so now people are talking. Now, in my prior video to the last one, I spoke about how they said that he wasn't a suspect. They didn't even think that he was a suspect. Remember that the remains that were left in the car, that somebody could maybe be charged with transferring or desecration of a body. They may serve anything up for, several months to a few $1,000s in fines, but they were saying he wasn't a suspect. But we know now that news is paid for. And if you pay and you give them minimum things to talk about and to say, they'll put it out there. So maybe with that being said, the people that were involved, because we know it was multiple people, maybe they felt comfortable with speaking more about the crime. You know, we always thought that if it's on the news, it's supposed to be accurate and true, but we know now that that is not right at all.
Let's start at the beginning, Dave Mack. What do you know?
Well, Nancy, we know that D4VD took a trip to Santa Barbara County, which is about 100 miles from the house that he was renting and taking about 2 hours to drive. Okay. So he takes this drive in the middle of the night in the spring of this year, and he stays there for a couple of hours. Now, they say remote area of Santa Barbara. If you've ever been to Santa Barbara, remote area can include probably 80% of the surrounding area. Big area, and you can actually be there and not be seen for a long time. He was there for hours. Now, they're also saying they believe, I'm talking about the police investigation is saying to this source, they believe Celeste died sometime in the spring of 2025. So we have Burke driving in the middle of the night to Santa Barbara County in the spring of 2025. And we have them saying Celeste died in the spring 2025. That's for starters, Nancy. This is a bombshell.
That is major, Dave Mack. I know that the headlines all across the world are D4VD David Anthony Burke as finally being viewed as a suspect, although LAPD is not confirming that. To me, the real bombshell tonight is that we believe she was killed back in the spring. What efforts were being taken by those within D4VD's camp to conceal her death? Pretending she was still alive? That's what we're looking at tonight.
Now, if you haven't heard this information, what you are about to hear is insane because it really was for me. But you know what? David or whoever did this to Celeste, this was the most sloppiest crime ever. If he was in this remote area to get rid of her remains, why didn't he do it? Why bring half of it back or whatever it was? I mean, sick and disgusting.
This is a major change in the investigation, Dave Mack. Straight out to Professor of Forensics, Jacksonville State University, author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon, and star of a hit new series, Body Bags, with Joseph Scott Morgan, joining us, death investigator who has investigated literally thousands of deaths, not just homicides, suicide, natural causes, accident, unexplained, and of course, homicide. This is very confusing to us on the outside looking in, Joe Scott, but the reality is, I'm sure the medical examiner, when she saw the remains, could very likely state, oh no, this child has been dead since the spring. You know, we were working off a timeline, putting her alive as late as September. So yep. What would be the difference, Joe Scott? I know this is a tough question. There's a lot of variables in Celeste's decomposing body. And guys, I'm sorry that we are talking so analytically and clinically about a little girl, Celeste, but this is what the trial will boil down to, if there ever is a trial. Her decomposed remains. Joe Scott, if her body had been decomposing since September, as opposed to the spring, months before, what would be different when the medical examiner opened those bags?
I'll tell you precisely, and this is one of the reasons we still don't have a cause of death, is the fact that, put this in as delicate terms as possible, the tissue remaining on her body would have the consistency, perhaps, of Jell-O, all right? It will have broken down to a point where some of her remains will have been liquefied to that point, if in fact this new timeline is in effect. And that's going to impact a variety of different areas. Like, say, for instance, Nancy, we're looking for soft tissue trauma, like contusions. or even to a certain degree, things like sharp-edged weapons or even bullet defects. That's going to compromise your ability to visualize those things. So you have to be reliant, and I can
Slow down,
almost tell
please.
you.
Slow
Yeah.
down, Joe Scott.
Yeah.
Can I put it in regular people talk?
Yeah, sure.
I don't see it so much as Jell-O. It's more like, did your children ever make slime? You
Oh,
know what
yeah.
slime is? That
Yeah.
gooey junk children made. It's a
Yes.
little thicker than Jell-O,
Yeah.
but when you pick it up,
Yeah.
it's goo. Thicker
Yeah.
than Jell-O. I think what you're saying is that if her body had been in that trunk since the spring, she would be gelatinous, like
Yes.
goo.
Yeah.
And therefore, if she had decomposed to that point, you listed several things. I'd like you to go back over it again if you don't mind. If that is the state of her remains, how in the world can we find a knife mark, a bullet wound, a soft tissue marking such as a bruise or a subcutaneous hemorrhage?
Yep.
It's all gone.
Yeah, we retreat back to this idea of doing X-rays, and what you're going to be looking at potentially, Nancy, is insults to the underlying skeletal structure. Okay, so if you think about, like, if we talk about a knife wound, for instance, it's going to be, knife wounds, just like projectiles fired from a weapon, actually have a wound track where you follow kind of the hemorrhage line that goes. What you're hoping for in a case like this is to see if there's any kind of indwelling trauma on the surface of the bony structures. And that can easily be documented. Nancy, when they would have removed these bags, and everybody needs to really grab hold of this, they would have x-rayed the contents of these bags ever before they actually removed the remains from the bags. To this point,
Let me see
we
him.
don't really.
Let me see him.
Now, some of the answers I want, the first thing is, for those of you that are fans of David's and you guys watched his live streams, the live streams that Celeste was on it, do you know specifically around what month that she didn't appear on any of those live streams? Now, I'm imagining that they went on all the time, they went on a lot, but was there a time where she just wasn't seen? I'm sure a lot of his avid followers, and I know he had them, they had to know a moment where she just was not around.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So, okay. Here's another thing. Everybody on the panel hear this. Joe Scott, stay with me.
Yeah.
According to a source within the LAPD, it was obvious when they saw the bags that she had been dismembered. Now, we are left to interpret that. So, dismembered she was, according to the source. So, Joe Scott, you're telling me that when we get the body to the morgue, and remember, they likely take the body out of the Tesla, load it on to the morgue vehicle, so it's getting jostled, gets to the morgue. You're saying before her remains are removed from the bag and or bags,
Yep.
they're x-rayed inside the bag. Why?
Yeah. In situ, because you don't want to lose anything, Nancy. That bag is essentially all you have that's holding everything together at that point. And I've had cases like this where the bags have actually ruptured. That's a total nightmare for you. And can I point out one more thing, Nancy? Because I was just talking about sharp force here, and I don't know that that's involved. I do know that if we're talking about dismemberment, that sharp force in the post-mortem state, that means after death, sharp force is involved in that. So this even further complicates, how do you delineate between what happened prior to death and what we call the antemortem state and what happened after death in the post-mortem state? This just kind of doubles the problem here for LA County Coroner. And they've got a great staff. They see all
I've got to make a note
kinds
of that, and I'm going to come back to Joanne Nieves on how I believe they're going to determine if it's post-mortem dismemberment or an injury while she's still alive.
Yes.
I told you I smell a rat. Somebody's going to be singing, if not tonight, in the near future. Because we know, according to the leak, He, the killer, did not do this alone. He had to have help dismembering the body, according to the report.
So we know now that the high-paying content creators right here on YouTube, we know that they get paid by celebrities and other people to, push their narrative, say how they want a story to go. We know that. So I'm thinking, a couple of days ago, I did a story. I did a story where they said that David was not a suspect at all, that there weren't any suspects, that they believed that, it was an accidental death. And they even said the desecration of her body, and even somebody who may have been driving her remains around, they said they may get anywhere between, a few months to a year in jail and a few $1,000 fine under the California law. And I actually Googled the California law, and it was similar to what they were saying. So did they just put that out there to get the people to talk? Because it seems that they are talking now about this case, because they said David's camp was quiet. Nobody was saying anything. So somebody is definitely talking. We know that he had help. Definitely. We know that. Okay, I'm going to go real quick to Texas to get to Atlanta. It reminds me of several stories come to my mind of cases where it was multiple people, young people that were involved in the death of somebody, and they knew all about it and kept it a secret. Now, for the first one, it was Sylvia Likens. That happened in October 26, 1965, okay, in Indianapolis. Excuse me. I have a book. It was called The Girl Next Door. There's also a movie called The Girl Next Door, very good, and An American Crime. And I brought all that up. It was a lot going on. It was disgusting. It was horrible what they did to this little girl. They even had her own sister that had polio participate in it, and she only did it because she was frightened that they would turn on her. They did all kind of stuff to Sylvia Likens, and it was the whole entire block. A boy who liked her, the sister of the mother, her daughter, and the sister of Sylvia Likens, they all abused this girl, Sylvia, until she passed away. Also, Bobby Kent, that happened July 14th, 1993, a movie called Bully. And that was a true story, happened in Florida, where Bobby was a bully. He had a childhood friend that he may have been SAing at times. He had him doing gay stuff in clubs. He was something else, if you people seen the movie Bully. And they all got him down to a place where they all, took turns pretty much torturing him until he died. Whole bunch of young people, like late teens to 20s, just like the Sylvia Likens story. The only oldest person in it was the mother that had some kind of weird sexual obsession with Sylvia. And then, very recently, the Kanika Jenkins story, that everybody has different outcomes from it. But it was involved in a whole bunch of young people. And it led to a death, and multiple people knew about it. And it seems that since that happened, September 10th, 2017, it's been multiple deaths of a lot of those people, accidental or not. So I brought that all up to say is this is a situation right now where multiple people knew what happened to this girl, knows right now, they cover it up. And is it finally coming to the light? Are people really talking?
In a state of her remains, Joe Scott, if she is in fact dead since the spring, which coincides with that late night trip out to the remote area near Santa Barbara, you're going to have a witness. You're going to have somebody wrapped. Now, that would be the nature of her remains if she was killed back in the spring. Okay?
Correct.
Now, how would it differ if she was killed in September, which is what we were led to believe? And I want to tell you one of the reasons we were led to believe that. Listen.
From The time it was moved to that last spot, which is on Bluebird. So on July 29th, when I saw it, that was like 11 in the morning. Later that evening, they begin the tour, and they actually leave that evening for San Francisco for the first show.
So there you go. To Moses Castillo joining us, private investigator for the Dordulian Law Group, former supervising detective from LAPD. I bet they are spinning like a top over this leak tonight. That's a whole nother can of worms. That's their problem. I'm concerned with the timeline. We were misled, not on purpose, but because of when the car, the Tesla, was first parked on that street. That was a different date. It was not back in the spring. It was much more recent. And many people naturally assumed that is when the death occurred. But we're wrong. We're wrong. And now we're learning that authorities believe this child was killed all the way back in the spring. That changes everything, Moses.
Yes, absolutely, Nancy. I think the police are going way back to the very first time she was reported missing and trying to establish a timeline. Who saw her during that time period? Who saw her shortly thereafter? And they're following every GPS data on that Tesla, and that's how they found that area about Santa Barbara County.
What do you think about the leak, Moses Castillo? This is your department. You were years with the LAPD. Why is this leaking now?
Well, they want to stir the pot. They want to get the attention out there because maybe they reached a point in their investigation where they need help from the public. Like you said earlier, so there's a rat. Somebody out there has information that could help the detectives solve this case and bring justice to Celeste and her family. And that, I think, is a strategy that is in play here.
Listen.
Shocking new information from Fisher. Celeste was in contact with a family member in early July, weeks before the Tesla was parked on the street. P.I. Fisher is baffled that Burke has not made any public comment about Celeste's body being found in his car and hasn't offered condolences of any kind. Burke's tour continued after the car was towed and body found and was only canceled when the remains were identified as Celeste. So far, the police have no suspect or person of interest.
Dave Mack joining us, Crime Stories investigative reporter. That report was based on information we believe came from members within D4VD's camp, that Celeste had been in touch with her family. That has not been verified with the family, which leads me to wonder, has there been a gigantic ruse to suggest Celeste was still alive when in fact she was dead, much like the Gabby Petito ruse affected by Brian Laundrie. And remember when he was coming across the country in Gabby Petito's van, right, texting her family as if he's Gabby Petito? And this contact that was allegedly made by Celeste to her family, we don't know if it was a message, a text, an email. It could have been anything or nothing. So are we looking at the possibility this child was killed in the spring and then a cover-up ensued, making people believe she was still alive? That's evil, Dave Mack.
Nancy, I think they went so far as to remember the concert in Silver Springs, Maryland on August 24th, where there was a Celeste Rivas lookalike that was in the backstage area up on the balcony looking down on the concert, dressed in the same clothing that has been described as was on the dismembered remains found in that Tesla.
Now, this right here is what was on my mind. I stated in all the videos that I covered discussing that one scene, I said it's definitely Celeste. I still believe that it's Celeste. The only reason why I believe it's Celeste is because those same clothes was on the remains that were found. That's the only way. Now, pause. Sometimes, you guys, when I'm in stores, it's a weird thing I do. I buy multiple things. If I see one black shirt, I love wearing black. If I see one black shirt, I buy two of them. If I see one pair of pants, I buy two of them. I've always done this, even down to shoes. I've been doing this since I was a preteen. It's just something I do. I don't know why I do it. I do it. So unless Celeste does this, okay, I believe that she was actually the one on the balcony. I really do think that. How do you guys feel about that scene? Do you believe that was the real Celeste, the Celeste, the girlfriend, or the other Celeste, that if you put them side by side, they don't look anything alike?
I think this is part of that story. See, they're trying to put it out there saying, see, she's there. She was at that concert. But in reality, we don't have confirmation that she talked.
You know what else, Dave Mack? All along, there were people online saying that's not Celeste. But she was wearing Celeste's tube top and Celeste ripped jeans. She had her hair done like Celeste from the get-go. And we're showing you the video there. And in the circle, there is either Celeste or Celeste lookalike. But it seems so far-fetched that it would not be Celeste. Look at this. We were warned. There were red flags, ringing bells of alarm, people saying that's not Celeste. You know, to Dr. Geraldine Utter joining us, clinical psychologist specializing in cases just like this. She is the author of Maintaining Philly, Survival, Hope, and Resisting Drug Addiction, and so much more. Doctor, thank you for being with us. That would be quite an elaborate cover-up, would it not?
Absolutely. It would be a very elaborate cover up. But when you look at this situation with David, or D4VD, however you want to, reference him, there's a lot of image protection. This is a young person that he was involved in, that was a child, that was a minor. He's an adult. And he's also trying to, make way of this big music career. So it's elaborate in the sense that he's trying to protect himself and his image, and the people around him are also trying to do that.
I do remember listening and reading various articles and looking at videos where they said that Celeste had an ID. I guess it was a fake ID stating that she was older than her age. I believe that was true. Do you think, or do you have knowledge, the people that follow David a lot? Obviously, did you guys know that she was 13, 14? Or did you think she was 18, 19, which is what I heard?
Another thing that I just want to mention, Nancy, is the Tesla, the abandoned Tesla, is a huge red flag. Think about it. If he had any type of relationship with Celeste at all, any innocent person or person that had any type of empathy or remorse would at least, at the very least, offer condolences to the family. There's a lot of emotional flatness. There's a lot of what we call emotional compartmentalization, where this is classic avoidant behavior because he's trying to protect himself and his image. He doesn't really care potentially about what's happened to this poor girl. So when you look at it from a psychological perspective, you see secrecy, you see emotional flatness, you see emotional compartmentalization, with the main goal as to protect image.
Well, also to you, Dave Mack, joining us, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Speaking of a cover-up, did you see the photos we're just showing? There was a lengthy track record of covering up, because in most of the photos in which Celeste was featured, she's covering her face. What other girl, 13, 14, 15, do you know that typically covers their face in photos that are going to be posted? Time after time after time. A pocketbook, a hand, an iPhone, you name it. That was intentional. So the covering up has gone on for a long time. That right there is taken from a video which was then deleted.
From what we have found in looking into this investigation, there's no clear shot of Celeste Rivas with Burke at all. She's always got a hand up. There's always something blocking our view, so we can't identify her. And I'm telling you, this is so heavy-handed when you actually break it down. You're going, why didn't we see this earlier? Because they knew. I mean, Burke's 20 years old. We've got a girl here that turned 15 after her body was found in that Tesla. So back it up, and you're looking at, there are some people who believe that the relationship between Burke and Celeste began when she was 12, Nancy, and they have been practiced at preventing her from being photographed clearly with Burke ever since.
Joanna Nieves joining us, a veteran criminal defense attorney, founder of the Nieves Law Firm. a lot happening tonight. The timeline change is a massive, massive difference than what was thought before, and it changes all of the evidence. But Joanna Nieves, here's the thing. Isn't it true? When you've got a crime, bad enough to defend, it's hard enough. But when you have an elaborate cover up, trying to make it look as if Celeste was still alive, a lot of people probably knew about that. That's not easy to cover your tracks for that many months. If that is in fact true, that could be the killer's undoing the cover up.
Absolutely, Nancy. I think the thing is, it would definitely be a major conspiracy for people to be participating and taking acts to cover up a crime in that fashion if there is evidence to support that. Right now, what we have is a tight-lipped law enforcement agency that isn't releasing a whole lot of information. And the reports that are going around are the suspicions and the hunches and what could possibly have happened. But the prosecution can't convict on the hunch. And we're just we need to see a bit more evidence to support any of those type of allegations, whether it's a huge cover-up.
Wait, you want
or
more
even the fact
evidence
that
than a
murder
dead
committed.
body decomposing in his trunk?
Yes, because we still don't even know, like you were talking about with the anti-mortem and post-mortem injuries, we don't know whether or not there were injuries to that body that would support that a crime of murder was actually committed. If all of these are post-mortem wounds, if anything like that is found, we can still argue mutilation, transport, concealment of the body, but are we really going to get to the crime of murder and whether or not D4VD is actually the person who committed that, or does the nature of the involvement in the crime, maybe it was limited to a potential cover-up and involvement, maybe knowledge, but who committed the act if he's actually named as suspect and investigated for that crime.
Okay, so I'm not going to hold you guys too much longer. I'll probably look at any comments you might leave in the morning. But it was really on my mind. This case, for some reason, when I watched Nancy Grace earlier, it was just on my mind. Like, are they going to arrest him? When are they going to arrest him? And the thing is, if he does, in fact, get arrested, okay? If he does, and there is a court trial, with the way things are going, will he even be convicted? It could be mistrials. I mean, all kind of things can happen with the way things are going right now. All kind of things. Again, this is a very sad case. I didn't know anything about David until the case broke open in the news. I didn't know anything about him at all. And it's a shame because with me doing research on him, though his music is not, my type of music, he was a talented he is a talented young man that may have given it all up for whatever happened with that young girl. The minute he set eyes on her and his motives were something that should have been of a girl a few years older than her, then, sad but true. And I had stated and I hate even bringing this up, but I have to. Back in the day when R. Kelly came out, and we seen the videos and we've seen what he did, and we still rocked to his music. We did. But what he did with that young girl, it was horrible. It was sickening. I was the age of some of these young girls at the time, and I didn't know what they saw in him. To me, R. Kelly looked like a mouse, a big mouse. He did. To me, he looked like a mouse. So I didn't know why they found him attractive, but I guess it was his money and the fact that he was so famous at the time. And I hate to say, I still rock with R. Kelly. I do. I listen to his music, but I brought that all up to say is he didn't have murder, as his situation. If he was to come out right now and drop a song, it would probably be number one. I hate to say it. And David could have bounced back from a essay crime of a minor. He could have. I believe he could have bounced back with his talent. a lot of celebrities have. They have bounced back. But murder of a young girl that was your girlfriend at the time, it's very different. It's very different. Well, good night, you guys, or good morning. And I will be back, and I'm going to look more into this case. Thank you.